The flower was still under Claire's fingernails when she collapsed onto the sofa. 3 jobs in one day, the bakery at dawn, the cafe until 4, then 4 hours of catering prep for tomorrow's wedding. Her feet throbbed. Her lower back screamed. But rent was due in 6 days, and she was still $200 short. She should eat something. She should shower. She should check the boys' homework. Instead, she sat on the worn cushions of the sofa that had come with the apartment and closed her eyes. Just 5 minutes. 5 minutes of not moving, not thinking, not calculating how many extra shifts she'd need to cover the electric bill that was already past due. The TV was already on. The boys had turned it on without asking again, but Claire was too exhausted to care. They sat cross-legged on the carpet, faces lit by the screen's blue glow, 3 small silhouettes against the flickering light. Long Lost Family was playing, the reunion show. Claire had seen it before. Crying relatives, DNA revelations, tissues and hugs. Not her kind of entertainment, but the boys loved it. Mason liked the mystery of it. Miles liked the drama. Marcus liked the happy endings. Claire reached for the water glass on the coffee table. Her hand shook slightly. She hadn't eaten since the energy bar she'd wolfed down at 7 that morning. Tonight we have a very special guest. The host's voice was warm, practiced, the kind of voice that could make anything sound important. A man who has spent 7 years searching for someone he met only once. A woman he's never forgotten. 7 years. Claire's mind drifted to her own math. 7 years since she'd moved back to Savannah. 6 years since the boys were born. She'd been 22, alone and terrified. Now she was 28, still alone and just a different kind of terrified. Please welcome Nathan Cole Hartwell, CEO of Hartwell Dynamics and one of the youngest billionaires in America. The boys perked up. Miles, always the talker, whispered loudly, "A billionaire, like a real one?" "Shh," Marcus said. "I want to hear." Mason said nothing. He never did. He just watched, his sketchbook forgotten on his lap. Claire glanced at the screen and froze. The man walking onto the stage wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her car. Dark hair with a slight wave, sharp jaw, tall, confident, but it was his eyes that stopped her heart. Green. Deep, true green. The color of summer leaves. The color of forest floors after rain. The exact color of her son's eyes. 7 years ago, Nathan said, settling into the interview chair, I met a woman in Savannah. I was nobody then, just an engineer with a crazy idea and no money to my name. Claire's hand found the armrest and gripped it. I walked into a bar called the Lantern House. I don't know why I picked it. Maybe the music. Maybe fate. He paused. She was working there. Red-brown hair, brown eyes. She had flour on her sleeve. She'd just come from another job, she said. Something with baking. The room tilted. We talked until they kicked her out at closing. She told me about her dream of opening a bakery. I told her about my AI chip idea, the one everyone said was impossible. Nathan's voice softened. She was the first person who didn't laugh at me. She said, if you believe in it, do it. Don't wait for anyone's permission. Claire couldn't breathe. I spent the night with her, and in the morning, Nathan's jaw tightened. I had a 5 a.m. flight, the most important meeting of my life. I wrote my phone number on a piece of paper and left it on the pillow beside her. But she never called, the host asked. She did call. That's the tragedy. Nathan looked directly into the camera. She called, but the number was already dead. I didn't know, couldn't have known, that within 48 hours my entire life would be erased. Mason stood up. Mason, who never reacted to anything. Mason, who was always the quiet one, the watcher, the observer. He stood up so fast his sketchbook fell from his lap. He pointed at the screen, his mouth open. No sound came out. Miles did it for him. Mom, that man looks exactly like us. Marcus turned, his eyes wide. Mom, is that our dad? Claire's water glass slipped from her fingers. It hit the carpet with a soft thud. Water spread in a dark circle. On screen, Nathan pulled out a folded piece of paper. Old, yellowed, carefully preserved. I drew this 3 days after I left. From memory. He unfolded it, a sketch. A woman's profile, the curve of her jaw, her hair falling across her shoulder. Claire saw herself. I don't know her real name, Nathan continued. She told me to call her Millie, but I think it was a nickname. I've hired private investigators, searched every database. No one named Millie or Amelia who worked at the Lantern House 7 years ago. It's like she vanished. Because no one called me Millie, Claire whispered. Because my name is Claire. If you're watching, Nathan said, looking straight into the lens, if by some miracle you can hear me, I need you to know I never meant to leave. I never stopped searching, and I'm sorry, God. I'm so sorry. The host asked, what message do you want to send her? Come find me, or let me find you, please. 3 pairs of green eyes turned toward Claire. Mom. Miles's voice was small now, scared. You're crying. She was. She didn't know when it had started. Mom, is that? Mason swallowed. Is that man our dad? The one you never talk about? The one you said you didn't know? 7 years. 7 years of wondering. 7 years of calling a dead phone number 47 times before giving up. 7 years of telling herself it didn't matter, that she didn't need to know, that she could raise 3 boys alone. The memory hit her like a physical blow. That bar, the Lantern House, a lifetime ago. She'd been 21, 3 months from graduating with a degree she wasn't sure she wanted, working nights to pay her share of rent. Her roommate had just kicked her out for not making the payment on time. She'd lost her day job at the daycare when they cut staff. She'd walked into that bar not to drink. She couldn't afford to drink. But because it was warm, the music was good, and she didn't want to go back to sleeping in her car. There was a man at the end of the bar, young, dark hair, green eyes that seemed to see right through her. He bought her a drink. She told him she couldn't pay him back. He said he didn't want her to. They talked for hours about dreams and fears and all the things you tell strangers because strangers don't know you well enough to judge. She told him about her fantasy bakery, the one she'd designed in her head 1,000 times, with butter yellow walls and mismatched chairs and a name she'd never chosen because it felt like tempting fate. He told her about his idea, some kind of computer chip, something to do with AI. She didn't understand the technical details, but she understood the fire in his eyes when he talked about it. Everyone thinks I'm crazy, he'd said. My boss, my roommates, even my own mother. He'd stopped, corrected himself. My foster mother, she says I should be grateful for the stable job and stop chasing impossible things. If you believe in it, Claire had said, do it. Don't wait for anyone's permission. He looked at her like she'd handed him something precious. They'd left the bar together, gone back to his hotel room. One night, just one night, and in the morning she'd woken to an empty bed and a piece of paper on the pillow, a phone number, nothing else. She'd kept that paper for 2 months, called the number 47 times. It was dead before the first call connected. Then she'd found out she was pregnant with triplets, and she'd stopped looking backward because there was no time to look anywhere but forward. And now here he was, on national television, a billionaire searching for her. Go to bed, Claire said. Her voice sounded strange, hollow. But Mom! They went reluctantly, casting glances over their shoulders until they disappeared down the hallway. Claire sat alone in the dark, the TV now black, her reflection staring back at her, tear-streaked, exhausted, terrified. She had 2 choices. Call the show, let Nathan know about the triplets, watch her entire life implode, or turn off the lights, go to sleep, pretend this never happened. She chose the second. What she didn't know was that Miles hadn't gone to bed. He'd crouched behind the kitchen counter, watching her cry, memorizing the phone number that had flashed on the screen. Because Miles was 6 years old and he was tired of watching his mother work herself to death. 3 weeks later, Claire was wrist-deep in sourdough when her phone exploded. 6 missed calls. Oi damn, the house. 12 texts, all from numbers she didn't recognize. Then one from Mrs. Chen, the neighbor who watched the boys after school. Call me now. Something happened. Boys are fine, but call me. Claire's hands shook as she dialed. Claire! Finally! Mrs. Chen's voice was breathless. A woman called the house. Said she was from a TV show. Said Miles contacted them 2 weeks ago. Said he sent them a photo of the boys and... He did what? They want to meet you. The billionaire wants to meet you. He saw the photo, and Claire, he cried. The woman said he cried. The bakery walls closed in. Miles, her 6-year-old, had called a national television show. That night, Claire sat him down in the living room. Mason and Marcus were in their room. She'd bribed them with extra screen time. You called them, Claire said, not a question. Miles nodded, his lower lip trembled, but his eyes, Nathan's eyes, stayed fixed on hers. I used Mrs. Chen's phone when she was napping. I know I wasn't supposed to. Why, Miles? Why would you do that? For a moment, he didn't answer. Then the words came tumbling out. Because you're tired, Mom. You're always tired. You work all day and you don't sleep. And your hands are burned from the ovens. And you cough at night, but you won't go to the doctor because you say we can't afford it. Claire's chest tightened. Mason needs new art supplies, but he won't ask because he knows there's no money. Marcus needed glasses, and you didn't eat lunch for a month to pay for them. You think we don't notice, but we notice everything. Mom. Miles was crying now, full shaking sobs. I don't want money. I don't care if he's a billionaire. I just want you to not be so tired anymore. I want you to sleep. I want you to go to the doctor. I want, his voice cracked. I want you to be happy, Mom, and maybe if he's really our dad, maybe he can help. Claire pulled him into her arms and held him until neither of them could cry anymore. I'm sorry, Miles sobbed into her shoulder. I'm sorry if I made things worse. You didn't, she whispered. You didn't, baby. Will you call him, please? Claire looked at her son, the small, fierce, impossible boy who had done what she was too afraid to do. Okay, she said, I'll call. The phone call to Jennifer Walsh took 45 minutes. Claire answered questions she'd never had to answer before. Where she was the night she met Nathan. What she remembered about him. Why she'd never come forward when his face started appearing in business magazines and tech conferences. I didn't know, Claire said. I watch the news sometimes, but I never watch business news. Why would I? I was working 3 jobs and raising triplets. I didn't have time to care about billionaires. When did you realize who he was? 3 weeks ago, when my boys pointed at the TV and said he looked like them. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. Mrs. Donovan, Miss Donovan, I have to ask, are you coming forward now because of his money? The question should have made Claire angry. Instead, it just made her tired. Lady, I've been broke for 6 years. If I wanted to scam my way into money, I would have done it a long time ago with a much easier target. She paused. I'm calling because my son asked me to. Because he thinks maybe, her voice cracked. Maybe if we find their father, I won't have to work so hard. Maybe I'll finally be able to sleep. Another silence. I'll speak to Mr. Hartwell, Jennifer said finally. Expect a call within 24 hours. Claire's conditions were non-negotiable. No cameras, no media, no public exposure. She meets Nathan alone first. He doesn't see the boys until she approves. If paternity is confirmed, they proceed slowly on her terms. Those are reasonable requests, Jennifer said. Mr. Hartwell has agreed to all of them. He agreed just like that. Miss Donovan, I've worked in television for 15 years. I've seen people react to all kinds of news. Jennifer paused. When I told Nathan about your sons, he didn't ask about money. He didn't ask about publicity. He asked if they were healthy, if they were happy, if you were okay. Claire didn't know what to say to that. He cried, Jennifer added quietly, for about an hour. Then he asked me to arrange the meeting as fast as possible. 3 days later, Claire walked into the Birdsong Cafe, a quiet place in Ardsley Park, far from tourist crowds. She'd changed outfits 3 times that morning, felt ridiculous about it. What did it matter what she wore to meet the father of her children? He wasn't there to see her as a woman. He was there to see her as evidence, proof that the woman he'd been searching for actually existed. She wore jeans in the end, a simple blue blouse, the same clothes she'd have worn to work. She chose a corner table, positioned herself to see the door. The cafe was quiet, a Tuesday afternoon between the lunch rush and the after-school crowd. A couple in their 60s shared a slice of pie at the counter. A college student typed furiously on a laptop in the window seat. Normal people, normal lives. Claire wondered if her life would ever be normal again. At exactly 2 p.m., Nathan Cole Hartwell walked in. In person, he looked different. Smaller somehow, more human. Dark circles under his eyes, a slight tremor in his hands, but it was still him. The man from the bar, the man from the TV, the man whose eyes looked back at her from her son's faces every single day. Their eyes met. He stopped breathing. She could see it. The way his chest froze, the way his face transformed from hope to recognition to something that looked almost like pain. Millie, he breathed, reaching her table. My God, it's really you. My name is Claire. The words came out sharper than she intended. Claire Amelia Donovan, and 7 years ago I called the number you left 47 times before it died. Nathan sank into the chair across from her. His face had gone pale. I can explain. Then explain. He did. The meeting in San Francisco, the investors who saw potential in his AI chip, the strict NDA, 2 years of total isolation, new phone, new email, new address, no contact with anyone from his past. They said it was the only way to protect the IP. I fought Bob, Nathan said, but they said it was non-negotiable. And I thought, his voice broke. I thought 2 years wasn't long. I thought I could find you after, but you couldn't. The bar had closed. The owner moved to Florida. No one remembered anyone named Millie. He laughed bitterly. Because no one called you that. Because it was a nickname I made up. Because you were never Millie. You were Claire, and you didn't live in Savannah, and I was searching for someone who didn't exist. Claire watched him. This man who had built an empire, who commanded boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, now sitting across from her in a quiet cafe, completely undone. I hired investigators for 5 years, Nathan said. The best money could buy. They found nothing because I gave them the wrong name, the wrong city, the wrong everything. I moved to Mon after I found out I was pregnant, Claire said quietly. I didn't have anyone in Savannah. I came back 2 years later when I found work. Pregnant? Nathan repeated the word like it was foreign. You said on the phone, triplets? 3 boys, Mason, Miles, and Marcus, born Valentine's Day 6 years ago. Valentine's Day, Nathan echoed. Something flickered across his face. The day He stopped. The day you what? The day I always wondered what would have happened if I'd stayed. Claire didn't know how to respond to that, so she just pulled out her phone, opened the photo album, and slid it across the table. Nathan looked down at the screen. 3 faces, 3 pairs of green eyes, 3 small boys building sandcastles, blowing out candles, sleeping in a pile on a worn sofa. His hands began to shake. They have my eyes, he whispered. Yes, they have my mother's eyes, my birth mother's. I never met her, but I found a photo once in my foster file. She had eyes exactly like this. He kept scrolling, picture after picture. 6 years of moments he'd missed. Miles missing his front teeth, grinning at the camera. Mason holding up his first painting, a mess of blues and greens that somehow looked like the ocean. Marcus asleep with a stuffed elephant, thumb in his mouth. All 3 of them in matching Halloween costumes, tiny superheroes with homemade capes. You made those, Nathan said, pointing at the capes. We couldn't afford store costumes. They're better than store costumes. Claire didn't say anything. She'd been up until 2 a.m. sewing those capes, fingers bleeding from the needle, because Miles had announced 2 days before Halloween that he wanted to be a superhero, and his brothers had immediately agreed. Nathan kept scrolling. First day of kindergarten, 3 identical backpacks, blue because it was the only color on sale. 3 identical nervous smiles. A birthday party with a homemade cake that had collapsed in the middle, but was covered in so many candles you couldn't tell. Christmas morning in front of a tiny tree with exactly 9 presents underneath, 3 each. Carefully wrapped in newspaper because wrapping paper was too expensive. You did all this alone, Nathan said, his voice cracked. 6 years, 3 children, alone. I had help sometimes, neighbors. Mrs. Chen watches them after school. But no family, no partner, no one. No? Nathan set down the phone, pressed his palms flat against the table like he needed something solid to hold on to. I have sons, he said, testing the words. I have 3 sons, and I missed everything. First steps, first words, first... His voice broke completely. First in everything. He looked up at Claire, and she saw that he was crying. Not dramatic sobs, just tears sliding silently down his face. Can I... Nathan's voice cracked. Can I meet them? Please. I'll do whatever you ask. Follow whatever rules you set. Just please let me meet my sons. Meet. Claire studied his face, the desperation, the hope, the fear. She thought about all the nights she'd wondered about their father. All the questions she couldn't answer. All the ways she'd imagined this moment if it ever came. She'd pictured anger, accusations, demands. She hadn't pictured this broken man crying over photographs, begging for the chance to know his children. Paternity test first, she said finally, then we'll talk. The results came back in 5 days. 99.9999% match. Claire sat at her kitchen table and stared at the number until it blurred. She'd known, of course, known from the moment she saw Nathan's eyes on that television screen. But there was something different about official confirmation, something that made it terrifyingly real. Nathan wanted to meet the boys immediately, wanted to buy them a house, enroll them in private school, give them everything he'd never had as a foster kid. Claire shut it down. You don't buy your way into their lives, she said. You earn it on my terms. What terms? You come to them. You spend time with them. No gifts, no grand gestures, just you being present, consistently, every week until they trust you and until I trust you. Nathan looked at her for a long moment. You really don't care about the money. I've survived without money for 7 years. I can survive without it forever. What I can't survive is watching my sons get hurt by someone who promises to stay and then disappears. I won't disappear. Prove it. Saturday at Forsyth Park, neutral territory. Claire had spent the whole morning preparing the boys, explaining that they were going to meet someone important, someone who might be our dad, who might be, Miles had interrupted, the guy from TV. I know. How do you know? Because you've been crying at night again. Happy crying this time, and you keep looking at old pictures and you made us wear our good clothes. Miles shrugged. It's not that hard to figure out. Sometimes Claire forgot how terrifyingly observant her children were. Nathan arrived first. No bodyguards, Claire had insisted. No designer suit either. Just jeans and a blue button-down, like any other dad at a playground. He was pacing when they walked up, back and forth across the same patch of grass, hands shoved in his pockets, radiating nervous energy. When he saw them, he stopped. Claire watched his face as he looked at his sons for the first time in person, watched him take in the 3 identical faces, the 3 pairs of eyes that matched his own, the 3 small bodies that carried his DNA but were strangers to him. She saw his chest stop moving, saw his hands clench at his sides, saw the exact moment his heart broke and rebuilt itself in the span of 3 seconds. Then he crouched down, eye level, non-threatening. Hi, he said, I'm Nathan. Silence. The boys pressed closer to Claire. Even Miles, who was never nervous about anything, seemed uncertain. Nathan didn't push, didn't move forward, just stayed low, stayed still, stayed patient. You're the guy from TV, Miles finally said. The billionaire. I'm the guy from TV, but I'm not here because I'm a billionaire. I'm here because your mom said I might be your dad. The test said you are our dad, Mason corrected, always precise. You know about the test? Mom showed us the paper. Nathan glanced at Claire. She nodded. No secrets. That was the rule. Okay. Nathan took a breath. So the test says I'm your dad, but I know a test doesn't mean much. A test doesn't make someone a father. Being there makes someone a father. His voice dropped, and I haven't been there. I didn't know you existed, but that doesn't change the fact that I missed 6 years of your lives. That's not your fault, and I'm sorry. Marcus's chin trembled. You're sorry? Very sorry. Grown-ups don't usually say sorry. This grown-up does when he makes mistakes. Marcus stepped out from behind Claire. His small hand reached up and touched Nathan's face. Just a brief brush of fingers against his cheek. You have eyes like us, Marcus whispered. The same exact eyes. I know. Does that mean you're really our dad? Not pretend. Nathan's voice came out rough. It means I'm really your dad, and I'm so happy to finally meet you. Marcus burst into tears and threw himself at Nathan. The impact nearly knocked Nathan over, but he caught his son, and held on like he was afraid Marcus might disappear. Miles watched for about 3 seconds, then he launched himself into the pile. Mason hung back. He was always the cautious one, the observer, the one who needed to understand things before he committed. He watched his brothers crying, watched Nathan holding them, watched his mother standing nearby with tears running down her face. Nathan looked up, met Mason's eyes. He didn't say anything, didn't make promises, just opened one arm, a silent invitation. No pressure. Mason took one step forward, then another. Then he was there, fitting himself into the space Nathan had made for him, his small hand gripping his father's shirt. Hi, Mason whispered. Hi, Nathan whispered back. And there in the middle of Forsyth Park, a billionaire knelt on the grass with 3 small boys wrapped around him, crying into his shirt, while their mother stood 3 feet away and finally let herself believe this might be real. The weeks that followed were a test, not of Nathan's money. Claire never let him spend a dime on them, but of his consistency. He flew to Savannah every Friday night, left Monday morning. No exceptions, not even when a board crisis erupted in week 3, not even when a major deal needed his signature in person in week 5, not even when exhaustion started showing in the dark circles under his eyes and the slight tremor in his hands. "You don't have to come every weekend," Claire said once. "The boys would understand if you missed one." "I would understand," Nathan replied. "They wouldn't, not really. They'd say it was fine and they'd mean it, and somewhere inside them, they'd be wondering if this was the beginning of me disappearing. I won't give them that fear. Not ever." So he came, every Friday without fail. He learned their routines, which grocery store had the cheapest milk, what time the library opened, the name of their crossing guard, Mrs. Patterson, who had a Yorkie named Biscuit and kept butterscotch candies in her pocket for students who said please and thank you. He learned which park had the best swings, Daffin Park, not Forsyth, which pizza place the boys liked best, Vinnie Van Gogh's extra cheese, no mushrooms, which route to take to school when Miles was having a bad morning and needed the long way to calm down. He learned his sons, Mason, quiet, watchful, artistic. He didn't speak much, but when he did, every word mattered. Nathan sat on the floor with him for hours, crayons in hand, following Mason's patient instructions on how to shade, how to blend, how to see. "The trick is to not think about what you're drawing," Mason explained one Saturday, his brow furrowed in concentration. "You have to think about what you're seeing. They're not the same thing." "I don't understand." "That's okay, you will." Nathan didn't understand, not then, but he kept trying, kept showing up with crayons and paper and patience. And somewhere around week 6, he drew a tree that actually looked like a tree. And Mason's face lit up. "You're getting better," Mason told him. "I have a good teacher." Mason looked up. "Dad?" It was the first time any of them had called him that. Nathan's throat closed completely. He had to wait a full 30 seconds before he could respond. "Yes? Why do you keep coming back? Don't you have important stuff to do?" "Nothing is more important than this." "That's what Mom always says, but she has to say it. She's our mom." "I'm your dad. I don't have to say it. I just mean it." Mason studied him for a long moment with those careful artist's eyes. Whatever he saw must have satisfied him because he nodded once and went back to his drawing. "Okay," he said, "I believe you." Miles, loud, curious, demanding. He talked constantly about school, about books, about the weird kid in his class who could burp the alphabet, about the theory he developed that pigeons were actually government spies. "They're everywhere," Miles explained earnestly, waving his hands for emphasis. "And they're always watching. Have you ever seen a baby pigeon?" "No, that's because they're not born. They're manufactured." "Miles," Claire interrupted, "let Nathan finish his coffee before you recruit him into your conspiracy theories." "They're not conspiracy theories. They're hypotheses. There's a difference." Nathan found himself laughing, really laughing, the kind that made his stomach hurt and his eyes water. He couldn't remember the last time he'd laughed like that. Maybe not since that night in Savannah 7 years ago when a girl named Millie had made him feel human for the first time. Miles wanted Nathan's full attention and got angry when he didn't get it. "You're on your phone again." Nathan put it away immediately. "You're right, I'm sorry. Mom says phones are for emergencies, not for when you're supposed to be paying attention to someone. Your mom is very smart." "I know. That's why you should listen to her." Miles paused, then added, "I listen to her most of the time, except when she tells me to stop talking. I can't stop talking. My brain has too many words and they have to come out somewhere." "I understand that," Nathan said. "I used to be the same way when I was your age." "Really?" "Really. I talked so much that one of my foster families made me write a daily talking budget. I could only say 100 words per hour." "That's crazy. What happened?" "I learned to write instead, put all my extra words on paper." Nathan smiled. "That's actually how I started designing things. I couldn't talk about my ideas, so I drew them." Miles was quiet for a moment, a rare occurrence. "Maybe I should try that, writing instead of talking." "You could, or you could keep talking and I'll keep listening. I don't have a word budget." Miles grinned so wide his face nearly split in half. "I like you." "I like you too, Miles." Marcus, sensitive, emotional, careful. He warmed up slowly, testing Nathan in small ways, telling him secrets to see if he'd keep them, asking for things to see if he'd remember. "My favorite color is purple," Marcus said one day, completely unprompted. "Okay," Nathan replied. "Good to know." The next weekend, Nathan showed up with a purple notebook. For you, he said, handing it to Marcus. I remembered. Marcus's whole face transformed. He clutched the notebook to his chest like it was made of gold. You remembered, he whispered. You really remembered. I'll always remember. After that, Marcus started testing him more. Small things at first. His favorite book, Where the Wild Things Are. His favorite food, macaroni and cheese, but only the kind with the powdered cheese, not the liquid. His favorite stuffed animal, an elephant named Peanut, who had been missing an eye for 2 years. Nathan remembered everything, wrote it all down in a notebook of his own, studied it like he was preparing for the most important exam of his life. Because he was. I don't like loud noises, Marcus confided one night when Nathan was helping Claire get the boys ready for bed. Fireworks, thunder, yelling. Me neither, Nathan said. When I was little, the houses I lived in were loud sometimes. Lots of yelling. It scared me. You got scared when you were little? Everyone gets scared. The important thing is finding someone who makes you feel safe. Mom makes me feel safe. Your mom's very good at that. Maybe, Marcus hesitated, maybe you could help too, sometimes. If Mom says it's okay. Nathan had to turn away so Marcus wouldn't see his tears. I'd like that very much, he managed, if Mom says it's okay. Claire, watching from the doorway, nodded silently. It was okay. It was more than okay. Claire watched all of this from a careful distance. Nathan was saying the right things, doing the right things, showing up when he promised, following her rules. But she'd been burned before, by life, by circumstance, by people who said they'd stay and didn't. She kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. You don't have to stand guard constantly, Nathan told her one evening after the boys were in bed. I'm not going to hurt them. It's not about you hurting them. It's about them getting attached and then what? I disappear? He looked at her steadily. People do. I won't. Everyone says that. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Harder, more certain. Words don't mean much, he said, so I'll show you instead, however long it takes. What if it takes years? Then it takes years. What if I never fully trust you? Then I'll spend the rest of my life proving you should have. Claire didn't know how to respond to that, so she changed the subject and they talked about the boys' school schedule. And the moment passed, but she remembered it, filed it away with all the other small moments that were slowly changing her mind about Nathan Cole Hartwell. 3 months in, the shoe finally dropped. The headline exploded across every gossip site in the country. Billionaire Nathan Hartwell's secret family. Tech titan has 3 hidden children in Savannah. Photos of Nathan leaving Claire's apartment. Photos of him with the boys at the park. Photos of the triplets with a caption. 3 boys with eyes identical to billionaire Nathan Hartwell. Within hours, reporters surrounded their building. Cameras, microphones, strangers shouting questions every time Claire opened the door. The boys were terrified. Marcus wouldn't go near the windows. Miles stopped talking, the first time in his life. Mason sat in the corner of his room and didn't draw anything for 4 days. On day 3, Miles broke. Is this my fault? He was sobbing so hard he could barely breathe. Because I called the TV show. Did I make this happen? Claire grabbed him, held him so tight she was afraid she might hurt him. No, this is not your fault. None of this is your fault. But if I hadn't called, then we wouldn't have found your dad. And even though this part is hard, finding him was the right thing, okay? You did the right thing. Miles cried into her shoulder and Claire held him, and she thought about all the ways that wealth could poison even the most innocent things. She called Nathan that night. This is your life, she said, her voice cold. This is what being with you means. Being hunted, being stalked, having my children afraid to leave their home. I'll fix it. You can't fix it. You're a public figure. You have no privacy, and now neither do my sons. Claire, please. I spent 6 years keeping them safe. 6 years making sure no one could hurt them. And now, her voice cracked, now they're afraid of windows. They're afraid of going outside. Marcus hasn't slept through the night in a week. I know, and I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't help them. Then tell me what does. Tell me what you need and I'll do it. I need... Claire stopped. She didn't know what she needed. She only knew what she feared, that this was just the beginning, that the circus would never end, that her boys would grow up in a fishbowl, watched and judged and discussed by millions of strangers. I think we need to stop, she said finally. Silence. Is that what you want? Nathan asked quietly. Or is that what you think you have to do? Does it matter? It matters to me. It matters to our sons. Our sons are scared, Nathan. They're hiding in their rooms. They won't go near the windows. Miles asked me if this was his fault because he called the TV show. My 6-year-old son thinks he ruined our lives. He didn't ruin anything. I know that, you know that, but he doesn't. And every time those cameras flash, he believes it more. Nathan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different, harder, more certain. Give me 48 hours. What? 48 hours. Don't make any decisions. Don't tell the boys anything. Just give me 2 days. To do what? To fix this. Nathan, please. Claire, you've trusted me with our sons for 3 months. Trust me with 2 more days. Claire closed her eyes. Every instinct screamed at her to protect, to retreat, to pull her boys into a fortress and never let them out. But another part of her, a smaller, quieter part, remembered Nathan on his knees in Forsyth Park. Remembered his tears as he looked at pictures of the sons he'd never known. Remembered every promise he'd kept for 3 months straight. 2 days, she said. That's all. That's all I need. 2 days later, Nathan called an emergency board meeting. He announced his resignation as CEO, effective immediately. The boardroom erupted. You're insane, the chairman said, half rising from his seat. You're this company. Without your face, without your brand, the company will survive. It survived before me. It'll survive after. The stock will recover. These things always do. Nathan, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. Nathan's voice was calm, cold, the voice he used for hostile negotiations. For the first time in 7 years, I'm being completely reasonable. Explain it to us then. Help us understand why you're throwing away everything you've built. Nathan looked around the table. 15 faces staring back at him. Some angry, some confused, some calculating the impact on their portfolios. Not one of them understood. I spent 7 years building this company, Nathan said. I spent 6 years without knowing it, missing my sons' lives, their first steps, first words, first teeth, first nightmares. He paused. I found them 3 months ago, and for 3 months, I've been trying to be part of their lives without giving up mine. And you can do both. No, I can't, because being part of mine means cameras and reporters and headlines. And my sons, my 6-year-old sons, are hiding in their rooms right now because they're afraid to go near windows. Nathan's voice hardened. I'm not choosing between my company and my children. There is no choice. There was never a choice. He stood. I'll remain as a technical advisor behind the scenes. No public appearances, no interviews. My stake stays the same. My influence stays the same. But my face disappears. He looked at the chairman. That's my offer. Take it, or I walk away entirely. You'd give up your shares? I'd give up everything for those boys. Silence. The board exchanged glances, calculating, weighing. Finally, the chairman nodded. We'll accept your terms. Nathan signed the papers, shook hands, walked out of the building without looking back. Then he got in his car and drove through the night from San Francisco to Savannah. 5:30 a.m. Claire was getting ready for work when she heard the knock. She opened the door. Nathan stood there, wrinkled clothes, dark circles, unshaved, looking like he hadn't slept in days. I quit. You what? Resigned, effective immediately. No more CEO, no more public face, no more cameras. I'm just a shareholder now, a very rich shareholder with no public profile. No one will follow me anymore. No one will follow you. Claire stared at him. You gave up your company? I gave up a job. I kept what matters. He stepped closer. 7 years ago, you told me, if you believe in something, do it. Don't wait for permission. I believe in us. I believe in our sons, and I'm done waiting. Nathan, I know you're scared. I know you don't trust me yet, but I will prove it to you every day for as long as it takes. Claire looked at this man standing on her doorstep at dawn. This billionaire who had driven through the night, this stranger who wasn't a stranger, who had just walked away from everything he'd built. For her, for their sons. You look terrible, she said. I haven't slept in 40 hours. You smell like gas station coffee. I drank 6 cups. Your shirt is on inside out. Nathan looked down. Huh? So it is. Something cracked inside Claire's chest, something that had been frozen for a very long time. She laughed, a real laugh, surprised out of her, breaking through the fear and the anger and the exhaustion. Nathan stared at her. You're laughing. You look ridiculous. I drove 2,000 miles to tell you I gave up my company, and you're laughing because my shirt is inside out. It's very inside out. I'll fix it. Don't. Claire reached out and took his hand. Don't fix it. Come inside. I'll make you real coffee. Nathan's eyes went wide. You're letting me in? The boys are sleeping, but they'll be up soon. And I think, she paused, swallowed. I think they should see their father at breakfast. Nathan's whole face changed. The exhaustion was still there, but underneath it, hope. Pure, terrified, overwhelming hope. Are you sure? No. Claire squeezed his hand. I'm not sure of anything, but I'm willing to try if you are. I've been willing since the moment I saw their picture. She let him inside, made coffee, sat across from him at the kitchen table where she'd eaten thousands of meals alone. Thank you, Nathan said, for giving me another chance. Don't thank me yet. I'm still figuring out if I've lost my mind. If you have, at least we'll be crazy together. They sat in silence as the sun rose. Two people who'd met once lost each other for 7 years and somehow found their way back. At 7:15, the door creaked open behind them. Dad, Miles flew out first, crashing into Nathan so hard they both nearly fell over. Coffee splashed everywhere. Neither of them cared. Marcus came next, wrapping his arms around Nathan's neck and refusing to let go. Mason stood in the doorway, watching with those careful artist's eyes. Then slowly he walked over and sat down on Nathan's other side. You came back, Mason said. I'll always come back. Even though there were reporters, especially because there were reporters, I wasn't going to let them scare me away from you. Promise? Promise. Marcus whispered into Nathan's shoulder. Does this mean you're staying forever? Nathan looked at Claire over the tops of 3 small heads. She nodded, the smallest movement, barely visible. But Nathan saw it, and everything he'd sacrificed, every stock option, every board seat, every headline he'd ever earned, became worth it in that single instant. Yeah, buddy, Nathan said, his voice cracking. I'm staying forever. 1 year later, the house in Ardsley Park wasn't a mansion. Claire had refused anything bigger than 4 bedrooms. They don't need a palace, she'd said. They need a home. So home is what they built. A place with Mason's art on every wall, Miles's books stacked in every corner, Marcus's stuffed animal collection taking over the living room. The reporters had lost interest weeks after Nathan's resignation. Without the billionaire CEO angle, the story was just a man and a woman and 3 kids. Too ordinary to sell magazines. Too boring for clickbait. Exactly what Claire wanted. Nathan worked from a home office now, consulting, technical, advising, still making more money than most people saw in a lifetime, but invisible to the public eye. He was there when the boys woke up, there when they came home from school, there for homework and dinner and bedtime stories. He was just there. Claire opened her bakery on Broughton Street, Millie's Kitchen. She'd fought Nathan on the name. Millie doesn't exist. She was never real. She was real to me, Nathan said. That night, meeting you as Millie, that was when my life changed. She deserves to exist somewhere. Claire had thought about arguing, but then she remembered that girl, young, broke, terrified, who had walked into the Lantern House 7 years ago with flour on her sleeve and no idea what was coming. That girl deserved to exist somewhere, even if only in a sign above a bakery door. The bakery was packed from day one. Best croissants in Savannah. That's what the locals said. Claire worked the morning shift, hired staff for the afternoons, and was home by 3 p.m. every day. Not because she had to be, because she wanted to be. The morning of the boy's 8th birthday, Claire woke to the smell of burning. She ran to the kitchen. Nathan stood in a cloud of smoke, holding a pan of blackened something. I was trying to make the birthday pancakes, he said helplessly. The ones with the star-shaped chocolate chips. You use cookie cutters, you disaster. I know that now. Claire laughed. The real kind. The kind she'd forgotten she was capable of until he came into her life. Here, let me show you. They made the pancakes together, shoulder to shoulder, while the sun rose over Savannah. Nathan kept getting flour in his hair. Claire kept having to rescue the batter from his enthusiastic overbeating. It was chaotic. It was messy. It was perfect. When the boys thundered in, demanding food and presents and attention, Claire stepped back and watched Nathan, covered in flour, flipping pancakes while Miles critiqued his technique. The flip should be more confident, Dad. You're hesitating. Mason showing Nathan his newest drawing, a family portrait, all 5 of them with matching green eyes and matching smiles. Marcus wrapped around Nathan's leg, refusing to let go because, I haven't hugged you enough today, Dad. This was her life now. Not the one she'd planned, not the one she'd expected, but the one she'd hoped for. In the quiet moments she never admitted to anyone, the one she'd dreamed about during all those late nights alone, too exhausted to cry, but doing it anyway. Nathan looked up and caught her watching. "What?" he asked. "Nothing," and she smiled. "Just happy." "Yeah," he said, crossing the kitchen and pulling her into a flour-dusted hug. "Yeah." The boys immediately piled on, a tangle of limbs and laughter and chaos. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Claire realized she'd stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because this was it. This was real. This was family. Not the kind you were born into, the kind you found, the kind you built, the kind you chose every single day to show up for. Miles's voice cut through the noise. "Hey, I just realized, if I hadn't called that TV show, none of this would have happened. That means I'm basically the hero of this story, right?" "You're definitely something," Mason said dryly. "A hero?" "You're a menace," Claire said, ruffling his hair. "A heroic menace." Nathan laughed, lifting Miles onto his shoulders. "You know what? You're right. You are a hero. You called that number when no one else was brave enough. You brought us together." Miles beamed. "I knew it. I knew it." Marcus tugged at Claire's sleeve. "Mom, I want to be a hero too." "You are, baby. You all are. Even Dad." Claire looked at Nathan, this man who had walked away from everything to be here in this kitchen covered in flour, surrounded by chaos and noise and love. "Even Dad," she said, "especially Dad." Nathan's eyes found hers across the kitchen. In them, she saw everything. The gratitude, the disbelief, the overwhelming joy of a man who had spent his whole life searching for belonging and finally found it. "Thank you," he mouthed. "Thank you," she mouthed back. Not for the money, he knew that. Not for the house or the bakery or any of the material things. For showing up, for staying, for being exactly what they needed, exactly when they needed it, for being their missing piece. And in that small kitchen in Savannah, a family that should never have existed. Born from one night, lost for 7 years, found by a 6-year-old's desperate phone call, finally, impossibly, completely became whole. "Mom, that man looks exactly like us." A single sentence changed everything. Because sometimes the greatest miracles start with the smallest moments. Because sometimes the people searching for each other are closer than they know. And because sometimes all it takes is one brave child who loves his mother enough to do what she was too afraid to do herself. That's the thing about family. It doesn't always come the way you expect. But when it comes, it changes everything. In the quiet miracle of Claire's exhausted nights and Nathan's 7-year search, we discover one of life's most tender truths. Sometimes the deepest love is born in a single, unguarded moment, then hidden by years of survival, only to be found again by the fearless love of a child. Claire carried 3 sons alone through endless shifts and silent tears, building a life from scraps while believing their father had vanished forever. Nathan built an empire chasing a ghost named Millie, never knowing the family waiting just beyond his reach. Yet 6-year-old Miles, tired of watching his mother break, picked up a phone and dared to believe someone might still be looking. His courage cracked open a door that time and distance had sealed, reminding us that family isn't always found in perfect timing or grand gestures. It's reclaimed through stubborn hope, quiet forgiveness, and one small, brave act of love that refuses to let go. This story aches with the beauty of second chances and the ache of what was almost lost forever. Which part of Claire, Nathan, and the triplets' journey moved you the most? The moment Miles called the show, Nathan's resignation, or the flour-dusted kitchen reunion? Share your own story of longing, rediscovery, or a child's quiet bravery in the comments below. Your words might light someone's path tonight. If this touched your heart, please smash that like button. Subscribe for more soul-deep stories of love, loss, and healing. And turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. Thank you for being here. Let's keep believing in the power of family finding its way home.